Development is always work in progress. Organisations also need to intentionally and routinely apply a culture of unlearning and relearning to adopt and adapt to new ideas and approaches, to develop effective equity, diversity and inclusion processes and create inclusive environments. This needs to take place both internally as places of work and with external stakeholders. Using what we have learnt, the following are some ideas for what organisations can do to make this happen. There are many ways to develop an inclusive culture. You can provide learning and development opportunities. Encourage your colleagues, team and organisation to learn collaboratively and from each other. For example, celebrating Diwali or learning about Eid. You can facilitate employee conversations to support underrepresented groups. For example, staff surveys may uncover data that highlights the different experiences of staff within your workforce. You can establish committees that oversee equity, diversity and inclusion initiatives and monitor progress towards diversity and inclusion goals. You can develop and regularly review policies and practices to ensure they are inclusive and make sure you regularly consult with your colleagues to understand their impact. Most importantly, work to develop a psychologically safe space for employees to bring their authentic selves to work. Recruitment and representation are important parts of an inclusive culture. Implement inclusive policies and practices such as inclusive recruitment processes and accessibility initiatives such as blind applications and detailing salary information. Ensure representation and inclusion across the organisation, including senior management and governance, to reflect society and ensure, where this is not the case, you are conscious of the limitations this will bring and consider how you can bring about change. Shift power imbalances in the organisation by moving from formal hierarchical to more fluid structures. How can you ensure that more voices are heard? And support the professional development and advancement of employees from underrepresented groups, for example through mentorship opportunities or structured professional development pathways. As we seek to develop inclusive cultures, we can tie all this together by developing robust equity, diversity and inclusion strategies. To do this, we will need to develop transparency with our stakeholders and use robust methodology to seek both quantitative and qualitative feedback. How can we respond to the insight that we gather? And how can we help and support others to progress? We can commit to standards and regulations that impact vulnerable and less served communities in the longer term. We can think about ESG and EDI strategies, or perhaps becoming a B Corp, for example. We can both acknowledge and address the power dynamics that exist between ourselves and the organisations we work with. We can think about signing up to the Equalising Deal Terms principles, or by ensuring our payment terms are swift for small businesses. We can design social solutions such as investment products, starting with the needs of frontline organisations and the communities they serve, using inclusive fund design, participatory decision making and user voice practice. And we can support social purpose businesses as a form of community empowerment that can uplift marginalised groups and contribute to the economic vitality of communities, for example through procurement and buying for social and environmental impact. To develop a really robust and successful equity, diversity and inclusion strategy, we really need to assess where our organisation is on its journey and, most importantly, where it wants to go. The next step is then to create and implement an EDI strategy. Perhaps consider developing a theory of change to give additional focus. You'll need to embed your strategy in the way you work, including EDI monitoring and evaluation. We need to ensure meaningful mechanisms are in place for accountability and measuring progress, setting targets. The Diversity Forum Self-Assessment Framework is one useful tool you might use here. We need to develop transparency with stakeholders and use robust data to monitor and evaluate progress. We need to consider, can we be our own critical friend do we have the psychological safety that is needed to capture authentic feedback? We need to be honest and transparent in the challenges we all face or the failures we will experience. It probably won't all go according to plan. And most importantly, focus on the so what. What impact have your actions had? Use all of these steps to further revise and inform how your EDI strategy grows and evolves. Moving on from how organisations can take action, we are going to shift focus to how you as an individual might apply this approach to unlearning and relearning, the knowledge, skills and tools to bring about change where you work. Even if you feel that you do not have the power to take some of the actions above because they are not in your direct scope of responsibility, you don't have to work in people or talent, be the CEO or an equity, diversity and inclusion expert. You can still influence others and advocate for change. Each individual has a personal responsibility to bring about the change they want to see, and hopefully the end result will be a more inclusive social investment sector that becomes better at delivering the right solutions to the people it serves, a fairer, more equitable society, and an even better place to work. As we said, creating an equitable and inclusive working environment is everybody's business. And for change to happen, no matter how big or small, it requires someone to take the first step. So here's some ways you could look to contribute. You could perhaps inquire and ask questions of your managers or people and talent team. You could join or initiate a staff council or employee representative group and add to the conversation. You could look at the information your organisation publishes, such as reports and job adverts. Review them, considering what you've learned. Are there things you could suggest or signpost to? Take a good look at your organisation's policies and practices in order to be well informed about how they apply to you and how to apply them, especially if you have line management responsibilities. These will help your EDI journey and you can encourage others to do the same. Consider who you may need to support in your organisation and actively work towards becoming a good ally. If you find existing or new initiatives that speak to your organisation's values, explore them and share them with others. For example, show the salary or ban the box. You can support sector initiatives such as the Equality Impact Investing Project, Future Impact Finance or Women in Social Finance Networks. And remember, these are just some examples. And your commitment to equity, diversity and inclusion and your role as an active individual is important.